Yeah, I love that point, and I think it's our responsibility as leaders and managers to be present, and to not assume that let's talk about the routines a bit more, because I think you make an excellent point. It's easy to take the routines for granted, and it's easy to kind of ignore the team's performance on those routines, and that can lead to disengagement. It can lead to exactly what you're rightly calling out, and that is the team's tendency to kind of move into stuff that does attract more attention. So I think when we as leaders and managers put positive attention on things, that is a way to keep people engaged.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponto. Each week, I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Jon Dario. He is an author, speaker, retail leadership veteran, and creator of AIM, a management culture that turns managers into execution experts. Jon has just published his 5th book titled AIM, How Managers Get Radically Reliable Results. He works with companies to help them establish structure that increases employee engagement and sustainable performance. Congrats on increasing employee engagement, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thank you so much, Carl. Delighted to be here and excited for the conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a really important insights for our audience to hear, or how to create engaged employees and get those results for the business, because there's so many companies that are struggling more because they don't have engaged employees, and they kind of forgotten how, if they engage their employees and get their employees taken care of, and then their employees take care of the clients and the clients take care of the business. And so it seems like the change needs to start with the management to help better engage their employees, to get their employees supported. So what are some of your suggestions, or what are some of the success stories you can share about how to get reliable results from employees by increasing their engagement?
Sure. I'll start off with just a couple of concepts. First of all, I believe very strongly in the concept that everybody wants to be successful. I think too often managers and leaders see their jobs as kind of from a punitive standpoint, or from an authoritarian standpoint, and the reality is that nobody wakes up in the morning and decides they're going to sabotage their employer's workplace. Everybody wants to be on a winning team, and managers and leaders who start off with that mindset and engage with employees from that perspective truly see their roles as helping people succeed, rather than punishing them when they don't. And that changes the dynamic of the leadership employee relationship in a way that I think truly enhances engagement. And I think the second piece of this really revolves around a relentless focus on action items, and that's where my AIM system comes into play. AIM stands for Action Item Management, and by leaders keeping their teams focused on actions and engaging in a regular dialogue about actions, and making sure that everybody is kind of clear on what results are intended, and what actions are needed to get to those results, then the whole team is operating from kind of the same place and using the same language, and everybody is working together to achieve the desired results and perform the desired actions. And that focus on actions ultimately leads to employee satisfaction, employee engagement, and as you say, radically reliable results.
So when you say actions, can you clarify a little bit more what those are? Because it seems like people are doing actions all the time. Is it more just that they're not currently mindful of what they're doing, or not aware of the impact their actions are having? Can you maybe unpack what do you mean by action items, and because it seems like that's such an overly used term in some ways. So I think it might be interesting, how you frame it and help people understand how they clarify which actions are the beneficial ones and which ones aren't.
Yeah, I love the little anecdote of a bus driver who tells the passengers on the bus, "I've got bad news and good news. The bad news is I have no idea where we're going. The good news is we're making great time." And that typifies the point that I think you're rightly highlighting, Carl, and that is that sometimes people are they're so busy that they miss the point of what actions they're really focusing on. So my teachings are to start with what I call the action results equation. So it's the equation is actions plus external influences equals results. And the most effective leaders are those who can truly define the results they want the team to achieve. They can anticipate the external influences that are going to be at play and what their impact is going to be. And then they can define the very specific actions that are needed to get to that result. And then they apply relentless focus to those particular actions. So some of those actions are routines that kind of go along with standards that the business or the team has to deliver on. So the routines are kind of those actions that just have to occur over and over and over again on a regular basis. And I believe that sometimes leaders and teams get bored with those routines, and they start to stray off of the delivery of the routine actions. And that's certainly a recipe for problematic performance over time, and certainly it leads to inconsistent results when the basic routines aren't being delivered, and then it also involves the kind of those ad hoc tasks that need to be added to the to-do list, and finally the bigger project plans. So I think to really get to the heart of your question, it's the effective leaders are the ones who don't just engage in activity or have their team engage in activity and pursue a bunch of actions. They have gone through a thoughtful process of identifying which actions are most closely correlated to the desired results, and they keep the team focused on those actions rather than letting the team get kind of pushed off onto side ventures.
Yeah, I think it's that need for, or the desire for speed and results as quickly as possible has led a lot of people to not evaluate, are we actually doing things that are our actions, or the time we're spending actually getting us where we're wanting to go? Or we are like that bus driver that's no idea where we are, but we're going really fast. And then there's also just the idea of, the routines or the consistency can get monotonous or boring if it's not, and people can want to like differ from it just for a sense of change of pace. So I think it also, there's that element of understanding the people involved and the experience they have with those systems, and having things in place that help keep things fresh and interesting and more enjoyable from a human experience perspective.
Yep.
Which I think also just ties into the larger kind of company culture, and having some of those actions being team building or other things that aren't necessarily like about exactly the work itself, but it's about building that experience for the employees that offers the variety and the interesting dynamics, and that kind of buffers the routine actions and keeps them from being vulnerable to drift or disruption.
Yeah, I love that point, and I think it's our responsibility as leaders and managers to be present, and to not assume that let's talk about the routines a bit more, because I think you make an excellent point. It's easy to take the routines for granted, and it's easy to kind of ignore the team's performance on those routines, and that can lead to disengagement. It can lead to exactly what you're rightly calling out, and that is the team's tendency to kind of move into stuff that does attract more attention. So I think when we as leaders and managers put positive attention on things, that is a way to keep people engaged. And sometimes it's about fun, sometimes it's about recognition, sometimes it's about some more extrinsic reward. But bottom line, what we spend time positively focusing on and positively engaging the team members on is the things that they will take to heart.
Yeah, I like that. That positive reinforcement is something that I was thinking about, as well as something that I think a lot of people, especially if it's a routine task that has been done for so long, people think, oh, that's just normal. It's not worth praising. Right. But if it's something you want people to continue doing and have it not degrade or become taken, be taken as for granted, then recognizing that consistent performance and having ways of like gamifying it or other ways of making it more interesting and keeping it fresh is important. And understanding that your team members are made up of people, and they're going to have the kind of messiness of the human experience in there. And so you need to if you want to get the consistent results, you can't have just the same consistent input, because the people and their situation, their lives are always changing. And so monitor, even though you're on paper, the system or the process might seem like it's a linear, logical series of steps, the actual execution of it is done by people or team members using, and the way they go about it is slightly different. And yeah, there's a lot of things being automated with AI and some other things like that can try and make it more consistent, but it's still, at the end of the day, you're still working with people, and there's always going to be variance and outside, like I said, there's external influences in people's lives that as a leader, you have to respect and take into account and understand that for your business to get the consistent results you need, your input and the systems and processes you have are going to need constant tweaking and adapting and monitoring in order to continue to produce those results.
100%. Everybody shows up to work every day with something different that happened in their lives the night before. And that influences where their mindset is when they show up to work. And then throughout the workday, their interactions with customers, their interactions with other employees, or their interactions with other stuff in their personal life, all that's not put on a back shelf. That all continues to occur, and it all plays into how people approach their jobs and how people, how people's attitudes and mindsets are. And we as leaders and managers have to be completely aware of that. And we have to adapt our interactions with people because their dynamics are always changing.
And so, yeah, I think it's such an important message. So I'd love to hear, we've been talking about kind of like the theory behind it, but do you have any kind of case stories you could share of this actually being put into practice and what the results were when people actually put this into use?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll take a really basic example of kind of one element of AIM that I think is fundamentally important. It's a tool for prioritizing or a process for prioritizing how team members view the kind of the competing priorities of the job. So one of the businesses that I run within my company is a parking business. We have a parking business in midtown Manhattan. It's a valet parking business, and just at the most basic level, there are a couple of priorities that can intersect with each other and can be problematic if left to the frontline employees individual motivations to to prioritize themselves, and that is safety and speed of service. Both things are important, right? We want people to get their cars. We want the valets to retrieve the cars as quickly as possible, but we also want we don't want accidents. Accidents in a parking lot can be catastrophic. So it's one thing on a normal Monday afternoon to be able to do both of those things at the same time well, but on a busy Saturday evening at the end of a Broadway show when the play lets out, you've got a lot of people looking for their cars at the same time, and they're ready to get home, and they want their vehicle right away, and they can put a lot of pressure on the parking attendants to they can be screaming and yelling and everything else, and the parking attendants, if there's not a clear sense of structural priority, they can easily make their own decisions to kind of fold to the pressure of speed of delivery and sacrifice safety. And one of the things that we do with AIM is we help teams build a prioritization structure that allows it provides for the fact that team members are going to have to make decisions on the spot, and it gives them a framework or a structure by which they prioritize their decisions. So when we say nothing kind of comes in front of safety, then the team members know that is their first mandate, and it helps them make decisions that kind of get past some of the competing priorities that they have to deal with. And thank goodness, since we've put that system into place, we've had almost a complete eradication of serious safety issues at those busy times, when prior to the system being in place, it was a little bit spotty.
Yeah, I imagine the clients or your customers prefer that as well, because they might be in a rush to get home, but if they hear a crunch and it's their car that got into an accident because they were pushing this person to go faster, suddenly they end up spending a lot more of their time with tow trucks and insurance, all that stuff, and it's a giant headache. And so the part of the structure not only protects the business and the employees, but it ensures that the customers get the results they want back, which is they want their car back for where they got it parked.
Yep.
And even though in the moment they might seem like they are unhappy, the overall experience is still much better than if there was an accident. And so that makes a lot of sense that you have that as a good example. And I want to jump back to one thing you mentioned early on, which was having the leadership to make this shift in mindset from seeing the employees as people that don't want to necessarily do a good job, or having to manage them from that perspective. And how do you get your leaders to make that shift? Because it seems like such an easy mindset trap to fall into.
Yeah. It's a lot of one-on-one coaching, and it starts, in a larger organization where there's multiple layers of management. It's making sure that the top tiers of management have already adopt that philosophy and are capable of rolling it down through the one-on-one coaching. But a lot of times it's when you lead somebody through a discovery process of kind of asking the question, saying, why do you think that person didn't perform the action effectively? And if the response is, well, because they just don't like to work hard, then I think drawing it out, and it takes a little bit more time than kind of telling people. But when managers go through the discovery of having to answer a few questions, like, okay, what makes you think that person doesn't want to do a good job, and let's talk through how people's motivations work and so on. And a lot of times when I coach when I coach managers to engage employees and ask them very direct questions. The employees have some rationale. No employee says I wanted to do a bad job. If you truly ask them, they generally have some pretty good answers. And they may not be acceptable answers. They may need to be taught something different. They may need to be coached, but the answer generally doesn't boil down to because I really want to stink at my job.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it comes from a mindset of wanting to understand, again, more about who the person is. That's the employee, not just the job title or the responsibilities, but getting to really understand them. And when they have the big understanding, then you understand what really motivates them, and you can align the interactions to properly motivate the employee to do a better job, which I think is a huge step forward. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for connecting with me today, Jon. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you want to connect with more with myself or Jon, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.